To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's
puertas.
a wild ride in the wilderness.
When indiscreetly doors change.
So today on Miles from Main Street, I got to go to Disney World. I had a lot of fun on my Disney World trip, and I have tons to tell you. But first, my buddy Brian.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad that you got to go. And I was actually looking through some of our episodes, and you were there in September of last year, doing the same thing, and you came back with some tips for the party and the Halloween party. So I'm excited to hear about that. And we're going to be able to hear more about things you've been doing on your trip. I mean, it's been awesome with you having this annual pass. You're there more than you should be in my eyes, or maybe you should just be there all the time. But anyway, we'd love to have you leave us a review and share it with a friend. It would be great to have you help us grow this show. So go on out to your podcast provider of choice and leave a review if they have that option. And for sure, tell a friend about the show and let them know that you're having such a great time listening.
Of course. And so I'm just going to get started on my ramble of my trip, because I'm sure I'm just going to talk a lot and throw a lot of information at you. But just to do an overview of what this trip was, is it started out at, giving you an insight into Brian and I's life. I don't know if we've mentioned this. I think we mentioned this on the podcast before, but we are going together in early December to Disney World. Kristin and I had decided that we wanted to take a Christmas trip this year because we did Halloween last year. And so we booked a trip for Christmas, and we booked a whole bunch of fun parties to be able to go to. And we were going to be missing food and wine, and we were seeing all of these fun food and wine things that they were announcing, and decided that we were going to try to take a quick trip out to Disney to go see food and wine. So it started out as like we could leave on Friday and be home on Sunday, and then we were like, oh well, flights look better if you leave on Thursday and get back on Monday, so we could do that. So it had already kind of turned into more of a trip than we expected already right away. But we were happy about it because, I mean, we were going to go to Disney, and we were going to try to make it kind of like a cheap, quick trip. We were not staying on property. We were staying at a motel, and it wasn't the worst motel. But it also wasn't like the All Stars. Like it was definitely like a motel. Like it was pretty cheap, and it was also like under construction currently. But it was
so
cool.
was this like a hotel like we had in Marceline, or was it better than that?
Honestly, I think it was like that, but I think it was a little worse than the one that we had in Marceline.
Oh wow, okay,
yeah.
All right. Now, do you care to share the name of this hotel, or are we avoiding that?
It was Best Western, or no, Motel 6 in Kissimmee. I'm not sure exactly which one, but it's like right outside Disney property. Like it's right there. Like it was like a 6-minute drive to Magic Kingdom. So proximity wise, it was great. And it was also very, very cheap, which is what we wanted. It was interesting because, I mean, I'm not going to do a full hotel review, but it was interesting because obviously things were under construction, and we were in a room that was new, like recently renovated. So like all of the stuff that was in the room, actually very nice. Like the countertops, like the sink, the shower, like the craftsmanship wasn't very good because you could already see that like some things were falling apart. But like what was in the hotel room, like was actually pretty decent. Like was just recently renovated. But like the bones of the structure were not good. Like you could definitely tell that like those buildings were built way back in the day. So like the building themselves hadn't been renovated. It was really just kind of like what was inside was renovated. So it was like it wasn't bad, but it also was kind of like not that great. But it was doable, like 100%. Like if you just need a bed and you want to make it super cheap, like 100% doable. We didn't see roaches until the very last day, which is
That's
a
a win
plus.
in my book.
Exactly, it's a definite win. Kristin was not happy, but that's all I'll say about the hotel. It was an off-property hotel. It wasn't on property, but proximity wise, was pretty much perfect, like exactly what we needed. Anyways, so yeah, we were there. I'll get to that later, how long we were there for, but we got there on a Thursday, and our first day was actually a party day. And we were really excited about that.
I remember talking to you on the phone at one point, and I think we mentioned this before you went, but like you guys were hemming and hawing over it and you couldn't decide if you were going to go, and Kristen's like, yeah, well, if we go, that's the party night that Ron will be at, and you were like, I'm booking it now.
Yes.
So that was part of this trip.
Yes, we were definitely there, and Ron was a large part of that first day, which actually made it a lot of fun. But yeah, we actually also made a park reservation, because we knew that like getting into the park on that party day, on like that right side where everybody walks in for the party, was going to be a madhouse. So we actually just like walked right in, and we were like, oh, look at us. Yeah, this is so great. But then you can't like just join the herd after you're in. You have to like loop all the way back around and go to like Tomorrowland to get your bag and your wristband and everything. So like it felt different, because the last time we did the party, we like followed that whole herd, and like we walked in like within that like little area, and we didn't do that
backstage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't do that. I mean, I'm not mad. I'm not like upset that we didn't do that. But it was definitely not what we thought. Like we thought we were going to be able to just get in and then like join up into the party, but they make you like go all the way to like some station to like check in.
So now that's because when you were first going in the gate, before you would go into the train station, they'd be giving you your wristband.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys circumvented that and went around it. So then, and this is a tip for anyone that might be in the park during the day and is staying for the party, whether it's Halloween or Christmas, you would then head to Tomorrowland if you're already in the park, and that's where you would get your wristband and goodies at that point, right?
Yeah, there were a couple. I think there was also one in like Frontierland, like a little station that you can go to. But yeah, you don't kind of like follow that whole herd of people. And I mean, we did it on purpose, because we wanted to. Our initial plan was to get to the parks, I think, a little earlier than we did. But I mean, we were there in time to like walk in, but like there was already like huge lines for the party. So we were like, oh, we have a like a park reservation. We can just walk in as normal people. So we did that. We got into the park like right away, and we were able to like start taking pictures and everything. So it was nice. But yeah, we went and we checked in. We got our wristbands, which are they're different now. They're like the cloth wristbands that I think you get at like festivals and stuff like that, which are pretty cool. But after a while, they start to hurt a little bit. I know like the side of my wrist started, although I did like wear it for like 10 days. But yeah, the side of my wrist kind of hurt because it's got like a little plastic thing on it. But yeah, so Brian mentioned that we had lots of tips for people doing the party from last year, from like us trying to like do everything in the party. we had a great time. Like, we had so much fun. We knew what we wanted to get done. We knew that we weren't going to be able to just go out and do everything. And we were very happy with how we did it. So I think that's honestly, like, that's the way to do these parties, is just understand you're not going to be able to do everything, have your priorities. And if you get to do other things like rides, or like we weren't even really interested in like meet and greets all that much, but we walked by the Jack and Sally meet and greet, and it said like, I think it said like 25 minutes, and it was almost like a walk on. Like, we just kind of like walked in line, and we didn't wait there for like maybe it was like 15 minutes. And that was like one of the highlights of the trip, was meeting Jack and Sally and doing
So
stuff like that.
I got to stop you there, because when did you meet during the night? When did you meet Jack and Sally?
It was, I have to think about that. It was later in the night, definitely later in the night, but it wasn't like right before the final show of the night. It was kind of like, I think it was right after, the last parade, which would have been, maybe it was like 11:30.
Because the last parade's at 11:15,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I think it was right after the last parade, and then we walked down Main Street and past that and saw that the line was very short. So yeah, it was towards the end of the night.
And I think that's a good tip too, is because when you are wanting to meet certain characters, it might be a benefit to get in the line later at night, but also it's a caveat there too, because they might close those lines down early. So, you might be going to Jack and Sally and thinking, I'm going to get in this line, but they closed at 11:30 and it's 11:35 and you can't get in line anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that has something to do with the length of the line. So if it was only like a 15-minute deal for you guys, maybe the line wasn't long enough to close it yet, and you were able to get in that line. So, it's just something to think about as you're planning your day, your party, how you're going to do things, that you want to be mindful of what time you're getting in that line.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that was like just one of the things that like we weren't 100% planning on doing, and then we ended up doing it. So we had fun with that. We were able to, I have to talk about this. We were able to find Ron. He's not hard to find. You really just kind of like, he's only at like a couple different spots, and you'll probably find him at that spot. Like, I don't even think he had gone live yet, and we saw him over by the piano players. So we chilled there for a little while. He went live. We were watching the piano player with him. We walked up to him towards the end of the piano player and chatted with him for a little bit. Brandon was there. Brandon was wearing his kimono, and he was wearing a pirate's hat. So Ron was saying that he was comfy but ready to plunder, which was pretty funny. And so that was cool. We were able to just like chill by Ron. Oh yeah, and then we in the airport, because I had said on one of his streams that like, oh, we'll bring you some cheese, and Kristin and I were like racking our brains as to like how we might be able to like actually bring him real cheese, but we didn't want to like bring him warm nasty cheese. And so we decided to, at one of the airport gift shops, we got him like a little Wisconsin cheese magnet. So we gave him that. We gave him a little present.
And just as a reset, and maybe you already said it, so I can cut it later, but just as a reset, this is Ron on the Go from YouTube.
Correct. Yes. Ron on the Go. He does a bunch of live streams and stuff like that. And I think he's been live streaming almost every single Halloween party, which is nuts. But yeah, he just so happened to be going to this Halloween party with Brandon, who has been on his stream before and was hilarious. Brandon is an ex Army, Marines, Navy, whatever Ron was in, buddy of his. And he was on one of his streams and he was hilarious. We told him that too when we met him. I like shook his hand and I was like, we're big fans. we watched the stream that you were on and we couldn't stop laughing. And it's funny, Ron, and I'll probably say this several times on this podcast. but Ron is Ron all the time. Like, it's so cool to see him just kind of like hanging out and acting exactly the same as he usually acts. But Brandon was different. You could definitely tell that, like, when the camera was on him, he was kind of like playing to the camera. But then, like, we would talk, and like, he's from Minnesota, so that was cool to talk to him about. But it's just so funny how Ron is Ron all the time. So yeah, we met up with them, like probably like right when the party started. And that's one thing when you get there. So we were there before the actual party started. And something that we really wanted to do was have snacks, and we really wanted to try all the snacks. And so we were there early, and we noticed that they didn't start serving like the party specific snacks until later, like when the party actually started. So it was kind of difficult with that, because we were like, oh, we'll get there early and we'll start snacking on stuff. So we actually rode a couple rides. We rode Pirates, and then I think we rode Big Thunder. And then by that point, like, the party had started, so we were able to start having snacks. And so
Which is the only reason to go, right? Is for snacks.
That, I mean, it's different for everybody. Like like we had talked about. I mean, like, some people are really into like meeting characters, and that was one thing that, other than the one time we met characters, that's something that we just didn't do. And if, like, that's what you want to do, that's really popular. So, like, you have to go from like character spot to character spot basically the entire night. So we kind of decided that, like, we weren't going to try to do that, and we prioritized having the snacks pretty early on. And everything we had was actually very good. I think we had the entire dinner at Pecos Bill's. And that was really good. They had some, like, some piggy wings there, and some other stuff that was just really good. And it was like real food. But then we were able to have like a couple snacks here and there, other stuff that we had. And then we kind of, right when like the parade starts, like, then it's just kind of like back to back, like, these are the different things that you're going to. And so we missed the first parade, but then after that, we kind of like, we were able to find a decent spot for the fireworks. And the fireworks are really cool. And one thing about the fireworks is, there's a Jack Skellington, kind of like in the front of the castle. And it's like, it's not an animatronic, but it's like one of those like puppets. And it's a really large puppet.
It's like 10 to 12 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see. So not only are there a lot of really cool projections and different projections on the castle, but there's that Jack Skellington puppet guy that you can see on there. So I would suggest trying to find a decent vantage point for that. We didn't have too much trouble, but I do feel like we waited around a decent amount for that. But yeah, it was really nice to be able to like be pretty close and kind of see all of the projections and everything that was happening. That part was really cool.
So you didn't do the first parade. You went to the fireworks instead after the parade was done, and then I'm assuming you did the second parade.
Correct. Yeah, and we had seen online that this was another thing that we kind of like waited around for, because Powerline Max dances in the street, and so we were on Main Street.
Oh, right.
And we wanted to see Powerline Max dancing on Main Street, and we thought we were in a pretty decent spot to like see the dance up close. But we were like right in the middle. So they dance at the end of the end of Main Street once, and then they dance kind of in the middle of Main Street. And we were kind of like in the middle of those 2 points. So like we
Okay.
saw everything that was happening, but like it wasn't like right in front of us. But that was still cool to be able to like see Powerline Max and like see them all dancing and everything.
That's fun. I'm like that addition that they've made. So where would you tell them to stand?
I think it's like right in front of the glass blower. I think that's kind of where they'll end up stopping, kind of like more in the middle of Main Street-ish.
So by Crystal Arts. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a decent spot. We were kind of we were more towards like the back of Main Street. Kind of like
Okay.
towards the end. So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the parade was great. I mean, the parade is always awesome. I love like the Boo to You song. It's always great. But yeah, and then after that we went and met Jack and Sally, and then we caught the last show of the Hocus Pocus show, which is I mean, it's pretty much the same show as last year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But it's always fun. It's always fun to see that. Yeah, and then we actually, I don't even think I mentioned this. We ended up renting a car this time. So at the end of our park days, we had to actually walk back to our car and like get on the tram and everything. But as we were walking out, we decided to take a picture, and we're sitting there. We had seen Ron on the Go again. At one point, he was on Main Street, and we were like, "Hey, what's up, Ron?" And so we're sitting here taking this picture, and I feel somebody get up behind us, and without even looking, I go, "Is Ron behind us?" And I turn around, and it's Ron, and he is photobombing our photos. So we've got a couple pictures with Ron behind us, just photobombing us, and then Brandon just kind of like meandering around behind us in the photo. So it's so funny. And then that was like the last thing we did, and we ended up actually walking out with Ron. We saw Ron at the front of the park, and we were all going to like the same parking structure, or like the same parking lot. So we ended up taking a monorail with Ron, and then getting on a tram with Ron. And it was really cool just to be able to kind of like talk to him and talk about all the things that he does. And I mean, again, he is the same dude. He's the same dude on the stream and just like chilling in real life, which I think is really cool. But yeah, that was a lot of fun being able to see him and kind of ending our day that way.
So the one thing I wanted to point out is that my wife and I were stuck here suffering, kind of hearing little things here and there about their trip, and seeing snaps come in. And the nice thing also was that since we're now friends on the My Disney Experience app, I was able to go in there and see all your pictures. So I was like, oh, look, they saw Ron on their way out with their pictures, and oh, look, there's Brandon. Like we were able to kind of keep up with the trip that way too. So anytime you did any of the PhotoPass pictures, they were there. So that's a great tip. I think if you have friends that are going and you don't get to go, maybe link up with their account, be friends, so that you can see their pictures.
That's very true, Brian. I hope you understand that that's going to go both ways now.
Well, yeah, it is, except that now we're into this thing where we're just kind of crashing each other's vacation.
Yeah, we're jumping on each other's vacations anyways, so we're going to be there. Yeah, so the rest of the trip, we were focusing a lot on EPCOT. We had a couple days in EPCOT, focusing on food and wine. I won't go over everything we had, but we had one of the real reasons we actually went on this trip was we saw the pickle milkshake, and we were like, we want to try that. And I can
that's
confirm,
like absolutely crazy to me that you would book a trip to drink a pickled milkshake.
a pickle milkshake. But can confirm pickle milkshake is pretty good. It tastes like a what's the Irish milkshake that McDonald's does?
A shamrock shake?
A shamrock shake. It kind of tasted like a shamrock shake, but with like dill aftertaste. That's what it tasted like, and I
That
like
just
dill.
sounds completely weird to me.
I like dill, so like I was totally cool with it. Kristin liked it too. So you got 2 thumbs up from us. I also, in that same sitting, I tried the unnecessarily spicy wings, which Kristin tried too. Can confirm they are unnecessarily spicy. Probably the spiciest thing I've had on Disney property. And they weren't like totally kill you spicy. Like they were like just spicy enough to be like, oh wow, these are spicy. But not so spicy where you're like, I can't do anything for an hour. So, they were pretty good, and we stopped at a bunch of other booths. We were planning 2 days in EPCOT, so we were able to go to a whole bunch of booths, and we had decided not to do any dining reservations on this trip for that reason, because we knew that we were going to be eating at a lot of booths for this trip. So yeah, EPCOT was great. We rode Guardians a whole bunch. The one thing I'll say about Guardians is now people are starting to say things in the queue kind of the same way people say things at like Rock and Roller Coaster and stuff like that. And it's if you've seen the queue, you probably know where it is. But it's the part where they say, "Does anybody know what they call themselves?" And like that Terry, I think his name is Terry. He waits a beat and then like jumps into like the rest of his lines. And so people have been like shouting things. Like I think I've heard people say broke, which I said quietly at one of these the times that we went on Guardians. Which was pretty funny. And then I've heard other people say like day drinkers and stuff like that. Which people actually yelled when we were in there at 1.2. But my favorite that I said that I got a pretty decent chuckle out of people was Swifties. Does anybody know what they call themselves? Swifties.
Because Taylor Swift now rules the world.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
I'm surprised they haven't just turned over all the songs from Guardians to Taylor Swift songs, but
oh, that's what they're retheming Rock and Roller Coaster to is Taylor
yeah, exactly.
Swift. Yeah.
Honestly, though,
right?
They would probably make a killing.
It would be so smart.
Yes. But yeah, we were able to ride Guardians, and that was great. We rode a couple other rides. I think we rode Living with the Land like 4 or 5 times while we were there.
Wow.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun at EPCOT, and then we went to one of the days we went to Hollywood Studios just for the morning, and it was right around that time that we were like, okay, it's actually kind of busy here. And we like for some reason we just really felt the crowds, and it was after that day that we were kind of like, maybe we buy Genie Plus for our last day. Which kind of worked out. Oh no, it was we had another Magic Kingdom day, and that day was just bonkers. Like we didn't have Genie Plus, and the crowds were very large, which we were not expecting. But yeah, then after that day, we were like, maybe we actually get Genie Plus for the next day. And the next day we were doing Hollywood Studios and then EPCOT again that night. And so it worked out really well, mainly because we did a lot of fiddle faddling with some of the lightning lanes that we got. So like at one point we actually, I don't even think we had gotten a lightning lane yet. We were just fiddle faddling to see if a lightning lane came up for Remy's. And all of a sudden, like, I think we were on our way to EPCOT, and we got like a 220 Remy's, like just like all of a sudden,
nice.
just like popped out of nowhere. And then we had gotten a lightning lane for Frozen, so it's like, and we utilized it really well in Hollywood Studios. So it worked out real good for us when we used Genie Plus for that day, and we were very happy that we bought it and we used it. We did end up going to the Moana water attraction thing, which like I didn't see anything online for it, so I didn't like fully understand. Not that I didn't fully understand what it was, but like didn't know what was all in there. And so basically, what it is it's like a walkthrough themed attraction with like a whole bunch of water features. The first couple of water features are like decent, and then kind of like as you get into the area, it's very like educational. So like not every not every water feature is like a big winner. So like the first couple, I was like, okay, and then some after that, I was like, this is, yeah, kids probably really like this. And once we got to like the ocean area though, like that area is like worth it within itself, because you can like make waves happen, like giant waves hitting rocks and stuff like that. And there are all of these other really cool water features that you can interact with. So I definitely thought that like, I think it's cool and I think it's worth it. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, it's not going to be drawing like that itself. I don't think it's going to be drawing people. But that as like a whole, like what everything else that they kind of have planned for that area and for EPCOT, I feel like is going to be very cool. But yeah, it was a fun walkthrough, and like there were certain things that like I found very cool and very enjoyable. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a one and done, but it definitely could be. So
I mean, that sounds pretty cool that you got to do that, and they've got some of these cool things. I've seen videos of it, and it looks really neat how you get to play with the water like they had talked about. But I've heard there's no line right now. Like during previews, there was a virtual queue, and they haven't had to have that yet. So, what was your experience getting into it?
there was a little bit of a line the first time we went through, which was during the day. But it was fast moving, so it wasn't even a 15-minute line. Like maybe it was like a 10-minute just slowly walking through a line, and then you kind of got up to the front and they were like, okay, go for it. So there was definitely a line the first time we went through, but then the second time we went through, we just kind of walked up to it and just walked in. So it just depends on like when you hit it, really.
Okay. All right. I mean, it seems like it's cool enough that you need to go check it out. But it's not one of those e-ticket attractions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe a D or a C, but still something cool to do and have some time for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, this is a bigger discussion, but I think like US parks in general could utilize stuff like that more, because I know that like the European park, Euro Disney or Disneyland Paris, they have a lot of those like walkthrough type attractions, because like the European audience likes that. Like they like that type of attraction. So I think Disney's getting pretty decent at it, because this Moana one is pretty good. So I just wonder like how much more of that they may like incorporate into the parks.
And I know they use some of this technology in Pandora,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't work anymore. And that worries me. Like, are we going to end up having this walkthrough thing that it was like, oh yeah, you used to make music over there with that water, and it used to splash water at me over there. Like, that kind of worries me, and I hope they keep it up and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't fall to something less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's a very good point. but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Um, I thought it was cool, but it's definitely not something that's gonna like make people show up. So on our Magic Kingdom day, we ended up. I mean, so we got there and it was pretty busy, and we had this plan already that hey, like we're gonna leave the parks and do a quick monorail loop and then come back to the park. Um, and Kristen really wanted to get the Christmas Chippendale ears. Um, and so we ended up taking a boat over to the wilderness, and we felt really good about this because the parks were busy. So it was like in the middle of the day, we it's like the thing that people always say, like, oh, in the middle of the day, go back to your hotel and take a nap. But we didn't take a
Mm-hmm.
nap. We just meandered around a bunch of other Disney resorts. Um, but we ended up taking a boat over to the Wilderness Lodge, which that's not where the ears were. That's what we thought. The ears were actually at the campgrounds. And so we
Okay.
were over at the lodge. We didn't find them there, and then Kristen dug into it a little bit more and found out that the ears are actually at the campgrounds, and they have buses actually from the Wilderness Lodge to the campgrounds. So we took one of those, and we went out there, and this was the first time I had ever been out to the campgrounds at Disney, and it's like its own thing. It's
Hmm.
like it's actually very cool. I see why Brian you enjoy them so much.
Oh,
Because
it's amazing. It's such a
it's
great campground.
it's really just kind of like its own like little like Disney World.
Yeah.
It's so different than like really anywhere else that you can go on property. Which I thought was very cool, and I had never experienced this place before. But we ended up, it's so massive that like we ended up having to take another bus out to the gift shop that we wanted to go to.
Right.
Um,
It's 750 acres, I think.
yeah,
It's huge. Yeah. So a lot of people there will rent golf
golf
carts.
carts.
Like you
Yep.
guys could have rented a golf cart for a half a day or something if you wanted to.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, you'll see golf carts everywhere. We had rented a golf cart, and I think I covered this in the past, but um, it's just such a different vibe being there than anywhere else. It's really laid back, and there's so much to do. And I'm sure you barely saw any of it while you were there.
Yeah, it was basically just kind of like that. We went several places, and I was just kind of like, "What's that? What's that?" And it was basically just kind of like that gift shop, and then like the front of the campgrounds. But yeah, we found the ears that Kristen wanted. We found a bunch of other stuff that that Kristen wanted. Um, and yeah, and then after that, we finally made our way out to the monorail loop. And right around this time, it was kind of like lunch, and we were like, well, why don't we go get Ohana noodles at the Tambu Lounge? Come to find out that the Tambu Lounge does not serve food until 4 o'clock, and it was like
Wah,
2 o'clock.
wah.
Yeah. Um,
Now, I do have to ask, do you recall if Ohana was serving dinner yet?
no, they weren't yet.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's
Hmm.
why, because
Yep.
if Ohana's not serving the food, Tambu Lounge doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Um, but yeah, we got there. They weren't serving food, but we were at that bar already, so we were like, oh, why don't we just get a few drinks? And so we had one round of drinks, and then I ordered another drink that we kind of shared a little bit. And then we proceeded to go to the gift shop, buzzed because we hadn't eaten anything yet, and buy all buy all of the Polynesian stuff. And the whole time we were like, we need to stay here. This place is so great. We're just like super buzzed. Then we ended up eating at Captain Cook's because we needed to eat something. We needed to put something in our bellies. And it was just great to be able to just kind of like chill. I remember I usually have one of these moments each trip where I'm just kind of like sitting around. I'm like, this place is awesome. And it was, I mean, maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was the Polynesian, maybe it was the food. But yeah, that was definitely my moment on this trip, was like hanging at the Polynesian. Like we had been in a park that morning, and then we went to the Contemporary. We hung out at the Contemporary. We went to the Polynesian. We were hanging out there, and I was just like, yeah, this is cool. I very much enjoy this. And then after that, we went to the Grand Floridian and did some shopping there. Of course, Kristin always has to go to Basin because they have a basin there. And then we took some more pictures. They have picture spots at the Grand Floridian, and we got some pretty cool pictures. They have some pictures with a poison apple that we were able to get. That was pretty fun.
And Cinderella's glass slipper.
Yeah,
that was cool.
I needed to do that again because the last time we took those pictures, I had a hat on, and when I took my hat off, like I had like a cowlick or something. So I needed better pictures. But yeah, then we made our way back to the park at that point and kind of finished our day out at the Magic Kingdom.
And what's really cool, and I don't know if you were able to do this or knew this or whatever, but they recently just restarted the boat that goes between Contemporary, Fort Wilderness, and the Wilderness Lodge. And we used that a ton when we were staying at the park, or when we were staying at Fort Wilderness. We use that boat a lot, and it's really convenient to get around. So like you were talking about getting back to the monorail loop, like that really does a great job of connecting you to the monorail loop. It's something that we've been talking about as like one of our meal options when we go in February, is maybe we just do a progressive meal around the monorail. But one of the things we could do is take that boat from Contemporary over to Wilderness Lodge, have a bite there, come back, get back on the monorail, right? Like, so it's a great option that they have there.
Yeah, I think that's what we took to get to the Wilderness. It's like a smaller boat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what we took to get there. And it was fun. We don't really take boat transportation all that much when we're in Disney, so it was nice to do that.
One of the things I'm looking forward to doing, and my wife has looked at me a few times as if I'm nuts, because I'll say like, I'm just gonna go over to, like when we were staying at Contemporary, I'm like, I'm just gonna take a walk over to the Magic Kingdom gates. Well, why would you want to do that? Because I can. Like, I might not be going in, but just to be able to do something like that, just because I can. And one of the things that I want to do when we stay at the Polynesian is jump on the boat from the TTC. I've never been on that ferry boat. And so I would love to do it. And I'm just going to, like, middle of the afternoon, head out on the boat over to the gate and then come back.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because we took that ferry boat over in the morning. And I mean, you can say like maybe it's faster than the monorail. I honestly I think it was a little slower than the monorail, but there's definitely shorter lines. So we stood for a while on that ferry boat, and I took that ferry boat once when I was younger with my brother and sister. I think at some points in the night, they just kind of like tell you like, no, you have to take the ferry boat. Because monorail is doing its thing, or like maybe the monorail was closed. I don't know. But yeah, we took it, and I mean, maybe it was faster than the monorail, but we definitely stood in way less of a line.
Nice. Yeah, whenever we've gone through the TTC, like when we had done the monorail from EPCOT, I think it was, and we had gone through the TTC, we've always either taken a bus over to Magic Kingdom or the monorail. I've never gone on the boat, so
yeah.
So
watercraft.
Watercraft. I love being out on Bay Lake and Seven Seas Lagoon, so it's definitely something I'm going to do. Um, so you had your park days, and Monday was time to head home.
Yeah, and this is something to keep in mind with MCO and the airport in Orlando is when it's busy, it's busy. Now, there was no reason for us to think that it may be busy other than the fact that it was a Monday. Typically Mondays are a little busier at airports than other days, but it wasn't a holiday. There wasn't anything else going on. Um, it was just a normal week. And we got to the airport. We got to the airport an hour and a half before our flight. So like not the full 2 hours. But we ended up missing our flight because TSA took probably around 2 hours to kind of get us out.
That's nuts.
It was insane. When we got there, the line stretched down all the way to the food court and just kept going. I think at one point it went all the way down and then started to wrap back around. It was craziness. And then at one point, I'm pretty sure they were like, "Uh-oh, like we're not moving people through fast enough." And so they end up converting everything to TSA pre-check. So it's like basically all that meant was we didn't have to take our shoes off. Like really everything else was the same. But they took a while to set it all up because a dog sniffs you on your way through.
Mm-hmm.
And we had people behind us freaking out about the dog, like, "Oh, where's the dog gonna bite us?" Like, no. But it took them a while to like set all that stuff up, and we were standing there forever. Had they not set that up and just sent us through as normal, we may have made our flight. We missed our flight by like 10 minutes. But so then we were there very early, and we went and talked to Frontier, which was another line that took probably another like 45 minutes. And I was like all ready to like have an argument with these people to be like, "No, I'm not paying," because somebody in line was like, "Yeah, they're gonna charge you $100 to like change your flight," and I was like, "No way are we doing that," because TSA was insane today, and like all of these other people missed their flights because of TSA. Like, what are they gonna do? Charge us all $100? So I was like ready to have an argument, and we got to the front. And the lady was awesome. The lady was just like, "Yeah, we have no clue why it's craziness right now." And so like they didn't even understand why it was so busy. So they just booked us on a flight the next day, which wasn't until like 4:45 or something like that. And luckily, thank you, Mom and Dad, my parents were in Florida that week, using some of their timeshare points. So we were able to just go to their hotel and hang out for those 2 days. So we literally had like 2 extra Disney days. We ended up going to Animal Kingdom, and then Brian, we may have to turn this into its own episode, but I did end up going to Rainforest Cafe, but we do not have enough time on this episode for me to talk about everything I needed to talk about Rainforest Cafe. But I went, and it was awesome.
I'm sure it's all good that you have to say about it.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was fun just to be able to be like, and it's like, again, annual pass, like, "Oh shucks, we missed our flight. What are we gonna do now?" And it wasn't
what are
like
we going to do now?
Yeah, and it wasn't like we just like found a hotel and just like sat there and we were like, "Oh well, shoot." Like we were actually able to like go do stuff. Like we got ourselves to Animal Kingdom. We were able to hang out in Animal Kingdom, and then the next day we actually bought. We didn't buy it. Our parents bought them, but they got tickets to EPCOT, and so we were able to go have that morning in EPCOT with my parents, and that was probably one of the most fun days that we had because I was there with my parents and we were hanging out, and it's fun because we were able to like show them all of these fun things that we do. Kristin was so excited to ride Guardians with them. She was like super in. We got a boarding group. It was a pretty early boarding group too. I was worried that they were going to die because of what it's an intense roller coaster. But I don't think they were ready either, because when we got done with the roller coaster, my dad was just like frozen, and I was like, "He's dead. He died." But no, he loved it. My mom said that her tummy was a little upset from it, which understandable because Guardians. But yeah, it was a lot of fun being able to hang out with them and do all that.
And your dad posted the ride picture from Guardians, and I was dying. It's just hilarious.
Yes, it's awesome.
You guys are behind him going like, yay! And they're like gripping on, white knuckled going, ah!
Yes. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun with them. We also rode Frozen because of course they needed to ride Frozen. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, and then we left early, obviously, to go make our flight. We made our flight, and we made it home, and now we're going again in a month.
Yeah, TSA at the airport in Orlando is just insane. They always have been. The last time that I flew through there, I remember the sniffing dog, and like the line, we're tight. Like, it's not like there's room in front of us. We're all tight up against each other, trying to move through that line as fast as we can, and it's not moving. And here's the guy walking the dog going, guys, got to keep moving. He can't do his job if you're not moving. And it's like, dude, we can't. Where are we supposed to go? And other stories I was hearing, I think the next year was that, and this is all October timeline, but people were taking their full bags of candy from the Halloween party.
Oh, yeah, I've heard this.
Through security, and they're like, oh, we're going to have to test each one of these, And it's like, dude, you've got 300 pieces of candy in each bag. You're going to test each one. And that's partly on the passenger too. Like, you don't need to carry on all of your candy. So, like, I just always am like, you definitely need to have the time. Don't be Mykhailo and get screwed.
The sad part is we were being responsible. Like, we've shown up to flights with way less time and made the flight. But we were there an hour and a half, which we found out, which was not quite enough time. So definitely 2 hours if you know that it's going to be a busy time at MCO.
Yeah, and they've always, I think everybody knows now, when you're flying, you're supposed to be there 2 hours early. Like, MCO, you might want to be even earlier.
Yeah.
Because
however, Kristin did see a sign that said, "Don't enter the queue unless your flight is within 2 hours." So, I think some people maybe clogging up that line.
Oh, maybe that could be.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I've never seen that. So,
Kristin took a picture of it. It exists.
Yeah. That's a great trip. You guys had an awesome time. It sounds like a couple of bonus days in there, which, like you said, annual pass. How can that be bad?
Yeah.
I love it. I think if that happened to me and I had just finished up with a trip, I might actually go to Disney and like beg them to just like, can you just add on a day to my ticket so that I can go into the park so that I don't have to pay full price? But
yeah,
I'm
right.
sure they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to further conversations with you, because I always find as we do these trip reports that, we kind of hit all the highlights and we talk about a lot of things and give as many tips as we can, but it's kind of, as we keep talking about it and as we have other topics that we talk about, like, you remember something that you're not thinking of tonight that is a good tip for someone to have, right? Like, so I look real forward to continuing on with your conversations about your trip and how that will apply to other things. So
Yeah, me too. I mean, there was a lot to this trip. I didn't even tell you that we ate at Topolino's Terrace.
Dang, yeah, we got to talk about that too.
Yeah, but
For sure.
that's definitely another podcast.
So definitely, join us on Instagram so you know when we're talking about the rest of his trip and all the other tips and tidbits that we want to be giving you. You'll find us on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Miles from Main Street, and we have a community group over on Facebook as well. Come and join us there. As I said earlier, get out, share, review the podcast. It'll really help us out. So, I look forward to talking to everyone online.
But like we always say, some live close,
but others don't.
So let's talk about it. We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.